All right. So I've attached my head and now I'm trying to seam together the body, right? I've made all my color decisions for the head. So now the body needs to match. And what I'm finding is it's going to match, but to extend it, like with this Gila monster body, I needed to change the direction of the lighting. And that's something we haven't done before. So we changed, with direct adjustments, we've changed the levels, we've changed the shape of it with warp, we've changed the color balance, we've changed the hue saturation. But what we haven't done is change it so it's bright on one side, dark on the other side. And that's because direct adjustments can only darken or lighten the whole thing. So we do that with a tool called the burn tool. And you can see as I used burn, I could decide where I wanted it to darken in the midtones and bring shadow. And then on the opposite side, I can use the dodge tool to brighten those midtones so it looks like light is hitting it directionally so it can match the lighting of the head, which is very dramatic. And you can see these tools get used a lot. And I'm going to show you how they work. So now that I've adjusted the levels, the color balance, the hue saturation, all the direct adjustments, you go to these tools. So it looks like a black lollipop, or actually a white lollipop on black. This drawer is the Dodge Burn and Sponge tool. Dodge is like levels for the highlights, but it's done in a tool a lot like your eraser. And just like your eraser, you want to use it fairly large with a 0% hardness. And the only, just like levels, the only thing you want to dodge is the midtones, because you don't want to get to solid white. And the strength is the exposure. And your exposure should always be less than 30, usually less than 20, because it's really strong. So on the layer I have selected, when I use this, it's going to brighten those midtones. Burn is in that same drawer. Looks like a cupped hand. These are symbols based on what you would do in a dark room with an enlarger on photosensitive paper to either overexpose or underexpose parts of the print. And this is for darkening the levels. So same thing, you use it large, 0% hardness at an exposure of less than 30, only on the midtones. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. And then this will darken, but because you're on the midtones, it will never go back to solid black. So you can see, especially if you squint, how those tools really helped it to match the lighting of my creature. But it's really easy to overdo it as well. So be careful with these tools, because they're powerful and they do change your pixels. So now I can erase some of these interior shapes, these edges, with this 100% eraser. And I can erase a little bit more of that toucan. And I start to see how I'm going to get that neck to blend, right? It's really annoying that there's that piece of bright green grass there, but I'll make it work. I have other tools I can use. And remember, you have full control of these shapes. All right, so now I've got the neck, and that's kind of matching the head as good as I can so far with that reference. So now I go to the monkey's body. And the first thing I'm going to do, like I did with the neck, this is really important for the body, is to warp it or distort it to try to position the anatomy to make more sense. Right? This is why we use all these components. So I Command T, I'm going to try distort first. And I'm just going to tug those shoulders to be a little bit bigger and wider. So that's what my sketch shows. And even though he's holding a piece of fruit, which is annoying, I can work with that later. I really like to get my whole chest area from one creature because it shows how the arms are connected. And if I'm running out of time, I can just use those hands as well. So I've already got 5 components. Okay, now you can see how those colors are blending pretty well with the Gila monster, but it never hurts to run them through direct adjustments. But before I do that, I don't need the whole factory floor anymore. So to save money and not have to hire employees to clean up a factory I'm not using, I'm just going to shrink the floor plan of the factory a little bit. So I still have plenty of space to move stuff around, but I don't need it all right now. And then I'm going to hit Command S to save. And that's going to help Photoshop run a little bit more efficiently, maybe glitch a little bit less with this new operating system. All right, now I'm going to go to Image Adjustments, and I'm going to start with Levels, and I'm going to brighten the highlights a little bit because this monkey was shot at night. And I can push those midtones brighter and maybe limit the highlights just a little bit. Good. Now I'm going to go to Color Balance. And I'm going to try to bring some of those blues into the midtones. And it can get more and more subtle as you have things that are already matching. And then hue saturation, you don't always need it, but when you need big changes, it can help. So I'm just going to check it. No, I don't really need it. Do I want it more intense? No. I want it right about where it was. Okay. Now, internal edges. My eraser, 100% opacity, big and soft. I don't need this back leg at all. Right? And I need to soften that hard edge that connects the rib cage with the pelvis. I can try trimming this back. This is an external edge, but I like that little tuft of white hair. And I can try transitioning this hard edge a little bit. Okay, so now that leaves me with the back part. I want to make sure I get the top of this leg coming through. So now I've got the dinosaur back. What's the first step I do? Transform, distort, warp, make sure the anatomy is optimized. It doesn't have to stay the way that the reference is. So I think it's going to help the balance of this creature if its pelvis is brought in a little bit closer. Like so. And then it might help the arms. I'm going to distort them just to move a little bit this way and up. It's kind of fun that they're long, but something like that. So remember, you have full control of that with just Command T. Now I'm going to do direct adjustments to the legs. So I'd say image adjustments, levels. Do I want to get the midtones darker or lighter? Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Remember, direct adjustments affect the entire layer or selection that you have. So I want to make sure I'm on the dinosaur. And do I want to go lighter or darker? I actually want to darken them a little bit, right? And limit the highlights so that they sink back behind the front arms. Now this is going to make a big difference. I don't like that green color. And it doesn't match the rest. So color balance with the midtones, I can push it more towards the warms, more towards the reds. So it's that kind of warm tone, more towards the magentas. But I don't want to overdo it because I can play with it in the midtones, the highlights, and the shadows. So now I'm going to bring blues back into the shadows. You see how it's a little bit grayer now. That works a little bit better. And then the highlights, maybe I can bring a little bit of that color back in. And just warm it up. A little pinker. Okay, now big shifts, hue saturation. And how intense should the color be? I'm actually going to up the saturation a little bit, so it kind of matches the rest. All right, now dodge and burn. So you see how the lighting on the toy isn't as strong as the shadows on the rest. So I'm going to use the burn tool, which is that cupped hand. Midtones, pretty large, 0% hardness. And I'm going to burn the shadows on the underside of the tail and burn the shadows on the underside of the body and on the back leg. Not making them black, that's why I'm only doing the midtones. Right? But pushing them into shadow a little bit more. You see how it won't affect the highlights, it will only affect those midtones. Then to strengthen that lighting, I'm going to use the dodge tool. And I'm going to brighten the midtones on the top, because you see this kind of bright light directionally on the top of my creature. Maybe brighten up the toes a little bit. Who doesn't want bright toes? All right, now I can do dodge and burn. I'll start with dodge and brighten up the back of the monkey and maybe brighten up a little bit of their fur on the outside, and then burn the chest, which is a little bit more in shadow, before I trim out that outside. And now I'll go back to where I started with this Gila monster. Kind of burn it. Dodge it. So that now I can blend it. Now this is a changing of textures, right? It's reptilian scales to long monkey fur. So how do I blend? You do that 100% opacity eraser to get rid of the hard edge. But I've already gotten rid of the hard edge, but this can help me kind of define the shape. So I want these hairs to kind of come around the neck and frame it a little bit. That are coming from the monkey behind. Like that. And then, even though it reveals the fruit I don't like, I can soften it on this side too. Oh, but it's got stuff I don't like, so I'm going to undo that. Instead, I'm going to burn it here so it recedes back a little bit. There we go. Just burn that edge so it looks like the hair is going to sprout out of it. And now I'm going to use the eraser at about a 30% opacity and just bite away. And in special effects, this is called laying hair. When you do it in physical effects, you use a little puncher and you punch it into the skin. But here we're blending between two layers. So that those textures look believable. Now I go to an even lower opacity and I just make that really, really subtle blending of those textures. Because this creature is pretty silly. So it looks like he has kind of a shaved chest, right? This is why overlap is helpful too. I can go to the toucan and I can now do the same thing